Is Antonio Sledge headed back to prison? Did he satisfy the terms of his plea agreement in giving testimony to the state? Let's explore. Hi, my name is Rochelle and I'm an attorney. Even though I'm an attorney, I'm not your attorney. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is not legal advice. Today, we're going to talk about the witness Antonio Sledge, aka Munktunk, whose testimony just concluded in the YSL trial. Now, Antonio Sledge was indicted as an alleged member of the gang YSL. In December 28, 2022, Antonio Sledge took a plea deal in this case. Under the terms of the plea deal, he initialed as to a host of factual allegations in regards to YSL and individual acts that he participated in as an alleged member of YSL. Now, to satisfy the terms of his plea agreement, he had to testify at trial consistent with the factual allegations that he initialed at his initial plea deal. To satisfy his obligations as outlined in his plea agreement, Mr. Sledge had to testify at trial consistent with the statements that were made and signed on his behalf in the plea agreement. Now, Mr. Sledge began his testimony last week, September the 4th, I believe, and his testimony continued till September the 9th. So his testimony has concluded. The question now is, did Mr. Sledge comply with his obligations as set forth in the agreement? When Mr. Sledge was examined by Miss Love, he indicated that some of the factual assertions that were outlined in his plea agreement, they were either false statements or they were statements that contained language that he was not familiar with. And so there were statements that Mr. Sledge testified that he could not testify affirmatively whether those statements were true or false while sitting at trial. This obviously differed from what occurred when he attended his plea agreement hearing in front of Judge Lanville, members of the state, and his attorney. Interestingly, Mr. Sledge also stated during his examination that when he spoke with his attorney informed him that he would be able to clarify any of the factual assertions that he attested to in his plea agreement when he gave his testimony at trial. And so, because of some of the statements that Mr. Sledge made in regard to his attorneys telling him that he could clarify certain statements once he was presented at trial, B, his assertion that he requested that certain changes be made to the language in the plea agreement, and that language was not accepted by the prosecution, and that language was not reflected in the final plea agreement. 3, that he did not completely read each and every factual assertion that was included in the plea agreement, and Mr. Sledge contended while sitting on the stand that he was reading some of these factual statements for the very first time, despite the fact that when he was sitting in his hearing in front of Judge Lanville back in December of 2022, he stated on the record that he had reviewed the document. He had reviewed the document with his attorney. He understood the contents of it, that he was entering into a plea agreement free and voluntarily. Mr. Sledge's statement during his examination differ significantly from what he stated at trial, and it is likely within the state's discretion to determine whether or not he has complied with his obligations in the plea agreement, because he did not testify consistent with some of the factual statements that were set forth in his plea agreement.
You were interested in a plea for probation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as it turned out, there were factual acknowledgments that you would have to initial to receive that offer of probation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, when you first learned about probation, did you realize that there would be factual acknowledgments that you had to initial?
No.
Okay, but at some point your attorney told you to get this probation, you're going to have to agree to factual acknowledgments.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the factual acknowledgments. Do you remember the first time you saw the factual acknowledgments on that plea form? Was it December 28th?
Yes, I want to say yes.
Okay. Could it have been earlier? To the best of your recollection.
Yes, I think if I'm not mistaken, yes.
Okay. Did you ever write a statement with your truth about what happened in 2015 and give it to Miss Love or any other prosecutor in this case?
Objection vague as to your truth and what happened in 2015, vague overall.
Did you say 2015?
I did. About what this case is about. Did you ever write a statement?
Objection
Oh, about, not in 2015.
No, about 2015.
Overruled.
No.
Okay. Did you ever sit down with Miss Love before this plea?
No.
Okay. Did you write the factual acknowledgments?
No.
Okay. On that sheet of paper in front of you, I believe it has, do you know what letterhead is?
I think it's the stamp, something like that.
Okay, on the top of the paper.
Yes.
Is there letterhead that indicates whose office that paper is from?
It's a Fannie Wilson. That what you talking about, right?
Yes.
Now? Yes.
Okay, from the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who wrote the factual acknowledgments?
No.
Okay. Who presented the factual acknowledgments to you? Was it Miss Love?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know Miss Love back in 2015?
No.
Was she hanging out with you in 2015?
No.
Okay. I'm not trying to embarrass you. You're a smart man, okay?
Right.
But you did indicate that you didn't know what the word notoriety means.
Yes.
And you've also just said you didn't know what the word coercion means.
Yes.
Okay. Could you look on that in that document with the factual acknowledgments? Should be page 3. I'm going to ask you to look at factual acknowledgement 1. On the last line, does it have the word notoriety?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to look at factual acknowledgement 5 on the last line. Does it say notoriety?
It's on 5.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to look at number 16. On the third line down, on 16, does that say notoriety?
Give me 1 second. You said on what line?
The third one down on number 16. That's page 5.
Yeah, I'm on page 5.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Could you go to page 6 and look at the last word on page 6? Does it say coercion?
Yes.
And those are words to this day, I guess before this trial maybe, that you never knew the meaning of.
Still don't know the meaning of them.
Okay. Do you write sentences using words that you don't know the meaning of?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Sustained.
Now, in preparation of your plea, whether it was on December 28th or before that, you did speak to your attorney, Mr. Wright,
Yes.
about the acknowledgments,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And you brought certain acknowledgments that are on that sheet to the attention of Mr. Wright and told him you don't agree with those.
Yes.
Okay. And were you present for discussions that Mr. Wright had with Miss Love or the state?
No.
Okay. But to your understanding, some of the acknowledgments that you did not agree with, the state refused to change, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you wanted to go home.
Yes.
Did you let a disagreement with those acknowledgments stop you from getting home to your sick mother?
Objection, speculation, and.
I said, did you let?
Objection as to the form of the question, whether did he let that? Objection.
Can you rephrase your question?
Those disagreements with the acknowledgments, did you let those disagreements get in the way of you getting home to your sick mother?
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
I mean, you basically asked the same thing, the same way. You just moved the phrasing around. I don't really know. Can you rephrase it again?
Okay. Can I break it up?
You
Okay.
can try.
You disagreed with some of the factual acknowledgments that Miss Love presented to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you brought that to your attorney's attention.
Yes.
And you were told that the state was not going to change those factual acknowledgments.
Yes.
Okay. On December 28th, 2022, did you let your disagreement with the factual acknowledgments stop you from entering that plea?
No.
Why not?
Because I wanted to go home to my sick mother.
You have, during direct testimony, when Miss Love was asking you questions, you've stated that you disagree with several of the factual acknowledgments in this plea agreement that you
Yes.
signed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You watched the video of your plea earlier today, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Those acknowledgments on that video, who was reading those acknowledgments? Was it you or Miss Love?
Miss Love.
Okay. When you were saying yes, ma'am, do you remember that? To
Yes.
pretty much every question, is that fair?
Yes.
Weren't there times during that plea, during that video, where you were saying yes, ma'am, before Miss Love even asked a question?
Yes.
Why were you saying yes, ma'am, if you disagreed with the factual acknowledgments?
I was just trying to get home to my sick mother.
Okay. Did your attorney tell you, or you testified that your attorney told you that you could explain those disagreements later, correct?
If I was called into the stand, yes.
Okay. And you were advised not to let those disagreements get in the way of going home, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Objection as to attorney-client privilege, objection as to hearsay, objection as to an improper line of questioning to an improper topic.
Okay, sustained on facts not in evidence.
Okay. When you came to testify in front of this jury, you were under the impression that you would be able to explain what you disagreed with, correct?
Yes.
Do you know the saying, you're between a rock and a hard place?
Yes, I heard of it.
Okay. Do you consider yourself in between a rock and a hard place right now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. The rock is that you know some of these things in this plea agreement aren't true, correct?
Yes.
The hard place is you don't want to go back to prison, do you?
Yes.
Yes, you do not want to go
I
back.
don't want to go back to prison.
Okay. And the problem is your plea agreement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about this plea agreement. In this indictment, you were charged with 2 counts, correct?
Yes.
Count 1, RICO,
Yes.
or conspiracy to commit RICO, I should say.
Yes.
And count 30 was a gun charge, correct?
Yes.
Specifically, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
Yes.
Now, during Mr. Sledge's redirect examination by Attorney Love, she begins a line of questioning where she's trying to infer that the reason why Mr. Sledge is unable to recall certain things or is backing away from some of the factual assertions that he made in the plea agreement that he agreed to at the plea agreement stage, but is backing away from when he's testifying, is because of the individuals who are present in the room with him at the time that he's being asked these questions by Miss Love. He's suggesting that the reason why he entered into this agreement, the reason why he signed off on these individual statements, is because his family member was ill and he wanted to be with the family member, and so this was his motivation to sign the agreement to be able to get out of jail. And the inference that the defense wants us to draw as the audience and also the jury is that, you know, Mr. Sledge is lying in these statements that he's making because he had to do this in order to get his freedom. So this line of questioning is something that the defense attempts to explore when cross-examining Mr. Sledge. Attorney Love kind of pushes back on that during her re-examination of Mr. Sledge, kind of asking him, well, Mr. Sledge, if you were in a rock and a hard place, you know, what was the rock and what was the hard place? You know, and that's a very interesting question that she's posed because, I mean, ultimately, it's pretty clear that Mr. Sledge does not want to be sitting there in that stand testifying against individuals who he once considered to be his close friends and family. And so, you know, I think that that line of questioning, to me as an audience member, you know, I don't know that it necessarily is an effective tool, because at the end of the day, everyone can understand the human desire to be with your family when you're going through crisis. And so Miss Love kind of suggesting what is the rock and what is a hard place in response to Mr. Shard line of questioning in Mr. Sledge's testimony, that his mother being sick really motivated him to, sign this plea deal. I don't know if it was effective in making Mr. Sledge appear that he was being untruthful while sitting on the stand, but was being truthful when he was entering into the plea agreement. In addition to some of these points from Mr. Sledge's testimony, I think it's also worth noting that Mr. Sledge had a lot of testimony regarding some key issues that are set forth in the indictment. Namely, Mr. Sledge admits that YSL, there is a neighborhood street gang which is called YSL, that he was a member of that organization, and that he became a member of that organization sometime in 2012. Now, Mr. Sledge attempts to kind of fudge what it means to be a member of a gang, and kind of suggest that, a gang could just be 3 or more people gathered together, that it doesn't require any criminal or nefarious endeavors that the people be involved in. He also claims that, with YSL specifically, that they are not required to be jumped in, that members of YSL, a person can just claim YSL and they're a member of it. It doesn't require anything other than that to be a member or to join in. He also kind of suggests that there are people of various different sects of gangs, both Blood and Crips and etc., that it can't be a gang in the sense that other people may define a gang or a criminal street gang, because there is really no rules about YSL. Anybody who wants to be in it can be in it, and no one has to be jumped in to be in it. They can just say they're in it, and that's good enough.
Do you consider yourself a member or associate of YSL? Either one, either a member or an associate of YSL.
I plead guilty to affiliated to YSL.
Let's put that out of your mind. I'm asking you here today, right now, do you consider yourself a member of YSL? Let's break it down.
Yes.
Okay. And on December 28, 2022, did you consider yourself a member of YSL?
Well, that's what y'all had me charged with.
We know.
Yes.
That's not in front of the jury.
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been a member of YSL?
I don't recall exactly how many years it's been.
Do you remember what year you first became a member of YSL?
No, I don't remember the year that he first started saying with YSL. I don't remember.
Would showing you a document with your writing on it and a year on it that you signed on December 28, 2022, refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay.
We will see how the prosecution deals with this evidence, because on the one hand, Mr. Sledge admitting that YSL, that there is a gang that exists called YSL that Mr. Sledge was a part of, that there are other individuals, not Jeffrey Williams, who are members of that gang, who claim to be members of that gang, and who Mr. Sledge has knowledge of and participated in activities with those individuals. The state, I believe, did a great job in terms of walking through photos that Mr. Sledge posted to his personal Instagram page, where he can be seen with other people who are seen in the indictment, throwing up various hand signals, including different emojis, like the slime emoji or the green hearts. They're throwing up a certain sect with their hands. They have tags, me and my slimes, slime love, slat. They're in some photos they can be seen doing different hand signals, including wiping their nose, etc. Walking through this information, and Miss Love asking him, okay, so these are the people in this photo. This photo's captioned, "I got love for me and my slimes," and walking through, okay, who's in this picture? Okay, so this person, are they a member of YSL the street gang or YSL the record label? And requiring Mr. Sledge to answer these questions, it will be curious how the jury interprets this testimony, specifically because proving that there's a gang is a key component of the prosecution's case. And I think that there was a lot of evidence presented that at minimum there is an organization that is not a music label, that is called YSL, that individuals who were indicted in this case did claim to be a part of, and Mr. Sledge similarly claimed to be a part of. Now, it is unclear what connection this neighborhood gang has with the record label YSL and with Jeffrey Williams. That was not established through Attorney Love's examination of Mr. Sledge. So it'd be curious how the jury will treat that part of the information, because in some of those photos, Jeffrey Williams was there. Mr. Sledge talks about the unaliving of Donovan Thomas, and when discussing Donovan Thomas, talks about that night. And during his testimony, he states that, he was immediately contacted via social media after the unaliving of Donovan Thomas by someone who implicated him in the crime and believed that he had participated in it. And in response to receiving that anonymous message, he gathered his significant other, gathered his child that was living with him, and proceeded to the home of Jeffrey Williams. Now, the prosecution goes down a line of questioning to understand, of all the people in the world or in Atlanta that you knew, why did you choose to go to the home of Jeffrey Williams? And the jury can draw many inferences from why he chose to make that decision. Mr. Sledge further testifies that at a certain point, Mr. Williams advises Mr. Sledge to go down to the police station with Woody because the police are calling Woody because they want to question him. And Mr. Sledge testifies, Mr. Williams told us to go down to the police station because we didn't do anything wrong. And the way that Mr. Sledge used the term we, Attorney Love pushed him to try to understand, okay, so what's the nature of the we that you're saying? Is we meaning you and Mr. Copeland, or is does that we include Mr. Williams? And I would say that my impression is that when he said we didn't do anything wrong, it seemed initially to include Mr. Williams saying, I didn't do anything wrong, you didn't do anything wrong, Mr. Copeland didn't do anything wrong, go to the police station and talk to them. And so I'd be curious how the jury ultimately decides that issue, if they believe that Mr. Williams kind of included himself in this collective we that Mr. Sledge testified to. And then Mr. Sledge further testifies that after going down to the police station, dropping Mr. Copeland off, he proceeded to go get a hotel where he wanted to lay low with him and his close family members. And Mr. Williams offered him money to go to a hotel, but had also offered to take him to Miami to help him. And I think the word that's used in his plea agreement is to lay low, right after the unaliving of Donovan Thomas. And so it will be curious how the jury reads this timeline and Mr. Sledge's seeking, in some ways, counsel from Mr. Williams as it relates to how to navigate the unaliving of Donovan Thomas and the implication that he was somehow involved in the crime. Now, on the one hand, because of Mr. Sledge's admission that he was a member of this of this neighborhood gang, YSL, and his admission that, he sold drugs, that he participated, he pled guilty to being involved in a drive-by in 2015, it will be curious how the state positions those admissions of his. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you've enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below if there are other topics that you want me to discuss or other cases that you want me to break down. See you in the next video.